From the Fidelity Bank Foundation studio, PBS Kansas presents One-on-One with Victor Hogstrom.
This is where the stars of Kansas come to shed light on life and the lessons they've learned along the way. My guest this week is a longtime public servant and one of the best known and respected local dignitaries in the state. He is former Haysville Mayor and Sedgwick County Commissioner Tim Norton. Norton rose to prominence in 1999 in the aftermath of the disastrous Haysville tornado. Norton was seen as the steady hand who helped guide his community through the complicated logistics and emotional trauma of that terrible time in Haysville's history. He served one term as mayor and then was elected to the Sedgwick County Commission in 2000. During his 16-year term, Norton was instrumental in the effort to build Interest Bank Arena and the National Center for Aviation Training, among other things. Now officially retired but still actively involved in community service, Tim Norton is taking time to reflect upon all he has contributed to South Central Kansas. And he has words of inspiration for the younger generations who now must take up where he and others have left off in building better communities across our state. This promises to be an enjoyable and an insightful half hour as I go one-on-one with Tim Norton right now. Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. I'm so delighted to welcome former Haysville Mayor and Sedgwick County Commissioner Tim Norton to the program. Tim, it's been a while since I've seen you.
It has been a while. Retirement kind of took me out of the mainstream a little bit, but it's good to be back at KPTS.
Are you enjoying retirement?
I am. My wife Susan is now retired from WSU after many years, and we're enjoying some grandkids, some traveling, and some volunteer work that we continue to do, but life's pretty good.
You know, when people retire, sometimes they go back to work. What say you?
Well, it's work. We're raising some money for the Haysville Education Foundation. I'm still on the Child Advocacy Center board, and we're doing some work there. Susan just got off the school board in Haysville, so it's work, but it's work that we enjoy and don't really get remunerated for, but that's okay. We get joy in different ways.
You know, when you left the county commission, you worked for the Aviation Museum.
I did that for about a year and a half. I committed to a year, and a year and a half later, I realized I was getting sucked into another job. And COVID hit, and that made it a struggle, but we kept it alive and well, and it was financially sound when I left. We got some new exhibits done, so I was pretty proud of the time I spent there.
You know, Tim, you have become such a revered figure here in Kansas over the years, but some people may not know that you are actually from Arkansas.
Grew up in a small town in Arkansas, about 30 miles from Memphis, Tennessee. Flat part of Arkansas. People would come to me at my Target store years ago and say, "Oh, you grew up in Arkansas, what a beautiful state." And I go, well, the part I grew up in was very flat, had cotton fields instead of wheat fields. It looks just like Kansas. So I didn't grow up in the Ozarks or that part of Arkansas.
So tell us about those growing up days.
Well, it's interesting. I just wrote a book of my life, so I've revisited that. My sons gave me a template to write a book, and I wrote a 400-page book about my life and times of Tim Norton. And growing up in Arkansas in a small town was delightful. I wouldn't change anything. My great-grandfather was the first mayor and a founding father of this small town. My mother was a school teacher and revered in that small town. It was a great place to grow up. Good neighbors, good churches, good education, great friends to be with. Very blessed.
As a young man growing up in Arkansas, what were your ambitions? What did you hope to become?
Well, I went to college and got a journalism major. My mother was a journalist. My great-grandfather was a journalist. In fact, he got a chance to ride on the presidential train with Williams Jennings Bryan when he ran for president against Woodrow Wilson. And my mother had graduated from the University of Missouri in 1928, which is very unusual. So I was going to be a journalist, but I got my degree, went to Memphis to get a job with the Commercial Appeal, and the money was not exactly exemplary. And I got offered a job in retailing as an advertising manager for almost double the money. So I went into retail, and that's where my career took me.
And so that retail store was Target?
No, it was J.B. Hunter. It was a division of Allied Stores. I was with them for about 5 years and then went to New Orleans with them, and later left New Orleans, and that's when I joined Target in Tulsa.
Why did you end up in Kansas?
Well, they started to open 2 stores in 1980 in Wichita. And I applied for those stores, and I came up here and ran the East Target store. And I did that for 18 years until the tornado hit in Haysville, and I became mayor full-time. So Target is what brought me here, and the community is what got me to stay.
Now, you said you became mayor until the tornado hit.
I was mayor 2 years before the tornado hit, but that was really a part-time job, community service, small stipend. And when the tornado hit in '99, I left Target. I wasn't retirement age. We made the decision as a family for me to leave and take care of the town. And I did that for 2 years and then ran for county commission.
Wow, that's very commendable.
Well, you have those burning bushes thrown in front of you in your life, and you have to make tough decisions. I was very blessed that I had 5 kids that said, "Dad, you do what you think is right for the community, for yourself, and for us, and we'll back you up."
So why did you get involved in the first place in the Haysville city government?
Well, I thought it was important, and first of all, I'd written it on my bucket list when I was 18 years old, to be a city council member or a state representative or a mayor. And so I took that seriously. But we had a zoning case in our neighborhood, and I kind of took the lead on that to fight the city for putting some restricted apartments in our area, and we won. And then my neighbors came to me and said, "Norton, we didn't like the way our representative handled this. Why don't you run for city council?" So I did, and I did that for 9 years.
And became mayor.
And then became mayor.
So as mayor, take us back to May 3rd, 1999. How did that day start for you, and how did events unfold?
Well, it was a Monday, so I was up early and at my Target store, walking the aisles, making sure the store was recovered from the weekend, working just like I normally did. Worked till about 6 o'clock and packed it up and headed home. And the storms, we started realizing storms were coming out of Oklahoma. And around 8 o'clock, I had my wife and kids all head downstairs to the basement because we were getting some really bad reports about tornadoes happening in Oklahoma. And around 8:15, I saw on the news that everything had shifted from going towards Derby and Mulvane and Douglas, and was coming straight north into Haysville. And sure enough, at 8:30, I got a phone call from our dispatcher at the city and said, "Oh, Mr. Mayor, we've taken a direct hit. The Total Station, which was a gas station right in the middle of town, lost its roof and was destroyed." And I knew then that we had taken a direct hit.
So as the leader, the mayor of Haysville, how prepared were you for that moment?
Well, I often say if you've ever gone into the toy department at a Target store the day after Thanksgiving, you know about disasters. I hope that I had leadership skills, good critical thinking skills, the ability to put together a plan. Fortunately, I had great staff. Carol Nugent, our city administrator, our Public Works Director, Randy Dorner, many of the other staff were very capable of making good decisions, boots on the ground. And we had a lot of people. Gary Steed with the Sheriff's Department came and helped. Greg Gardner called me. He was the Adjutant General of the state. I happened to know him. So we put together a pretty good team and went to work, rolled up our sleeves, and tried to make good decisions for the community.
How challenging, Tim, were the days following the tornado?
Well, they were very challenging. One thing I knew, though, is if I looked like I was under pressure, couldn't handle it, was scared or pessimistic, that would be the personality of the community. Because I was on television, I was being interviewed, I was talking to a lot of people, and if people saw a chink in my armor, then I wasn't the leader that I needed to be. So I tried to keep a good attitude, an optimistic, the phoenix will rise out of the ashes kind of attitude, and it all worked out pretty well.
So how did that change your life as a politician?
Well, I always tried to think of myself as a public servant and not a politician.
Okay.
I tried to...
That's one definition.
It is. I tried to think through why I was doing what I was doing, and it wasn't for political gain or to satisfy ideology. It was to do what was right for the community. So talking public service, it was about making good decisions down in the trenches for the people that I was serving.
So what would you say prepared you for that moment?
I think parents that cared for people, knowing that, that my dad used to talk a lot about the haves and the have-nots and how fragile that is. And that night, people went from having to having nothing. House was gone, their documents were gone, their car was destroyed. They had the clothes on their back, and being empathetic, understanding people's plight was part of it. And then I always said networking was very important. Knowing the people in the community that could help you make a difference. One of my calls was to Pat Hanrahan at the United Way. I was on the United Way board, and he rallied a ton of people to come down and volunteer and set up a volunteer station. And Paul Tobia out at Vulcan Chemical at the time got us generators to instantly get power into some buildings because we had lost all power. So networking and knowing who to call and how to muster the help you needed was very important.
Any lasting impact on Haysville that you can recall?
Well, I think it hurts a community that was growing at the time to be set back. For many years, Haysville was kind of a sleepy blue-collar town, and we had started to grow. We had a lot of rooftops being built. The downtown area was starting to change a little bit, and the downtown area is what took the direct hit. Mm-hmm. So we lost a lot of businesses, some restaurants. We lost 5 churches. 300 homes were destroyed, and that sets you back a little bit, both emotionally and socially, but also economically.
So describe Haysville today.
Well, I'm proud to still live in the same house I lived in then. I think it's a great community for kids to grow up, wonderful school system. Is it big and fancy? Is it East or West Wichita? No, it's not. Great place to raise families and kids. Wonderful faith-based center. So I think it's a great little community, and it's really come back after the tornado. One of the things that I convinced the city council to do was buy some land in the Old Town area because it had been totally wiped out and destroyed. And it was raw land, and we could purchase it at a pretty good price. Today it houses a $2.5 million library, a farmer's market, a community building, an art gallery, the old blacksmith shop, and some other historic buildings. And it has a gazebo where they have concerts. Okay. So, that area is now the center of town and is really pretty.
So we play a little game here on this program, if you've watched it before.
Yes.
We have one for you. Tell me the first thing that pops into your head when I say a word.
Okay.
Work,
Target.
home,
Family.
frustration,
People that don't pay attention and do their homework on issues.
satisfaction,
Grandkids growing up to be great human beings.
food.
Southern cooking.
Oh boy. What's your favorite?
Oh, anything my mother fixed. Fried chicken. I mean, not everybody can make Southern fried chicken, and boy, she could. But probably fried chicken, mashed potatoes, corn on the cob, typical Southern meal.
Stickable, yeah. Music,
Every kind there is, but Bob Dylan was my guy in the 60s. But, you know, I'll listen to about anything. Broadway musicals, probably high opera. I don't understand most of it, but rock and roll, country and western, jazz, it doesn't matter as long as it's good music.
we have it all on public television.
You do.
Yes,
you do.
we do.
You need to play more Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks, though, because I'm a huge Stevie Nicks fan.
I'll talk to our programming department about that for you,
Okay.
okay? So, fun,
Anything with family games, just sitting around talking, traveling with family. In fact, we're getting ready to head to St. Augustine for our Florida vacation with about 12 of the family.
future,
Understanding life that I've got left and doing something with it, and then relishing the growth of my grandchildren.
So what would you say you have as planned for your future? What's your future look like?
Staying involved in the community, maybe in a limited way, but making sure that I latch on to some things that are important for our community. Like I say, my wife and I took on the Haysville Education Foundation. Mm-hmm. Last year helped raise over $50,000 for them with an event out at the Union Stockyards. I continue to be dedicated to the Child Advocacy Center because I really believe that children are our future, and kids that have been abused and neglected need a hand up and a place to go to be made whole again. So being involved in things that I think are important are that, but most important to me is my family and my grandkids, and making sure that I am available and part of their life.
Tim, in 2000, you made the jump from the city council, from the city as mayor of Haysville to county politics. Why?
I thought there was a place that I could make a difference at a larger level in my community. And to be honest with you, Bill Hancock, who was served District 2 before me, called me one day and said, "I'm not going to run for re-election. And you know, we became very close during the tornado, Tim, and I think you should run for county commission." So it was really kind of a put in my ear and my brain from the predecessor, Bill Hancock, who I knew pretty well, to maybe throw my hat in the ring and move on to the next level.
And you won.
And I won.
Yes. So what are you most proud of as a county commissioner during your tenure on the county commission?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that I walked away from there after 16 years and still had my reputation intact. The 4 C's that I lived by were still part of my life, and the first one was civility. Mm-hmm. I believed that you had to be civil. I thought you had to be collegial with other colleagues and people that you worked with. I wanted to be citizen-driven and then child-focused. And I think I did all those things and could walk away with my soul intact, my reputation intact, knowing that I'd given it my best.
So tell me this, every so often the idea comes up of consolidating certain aspects of city and county governments, such as police.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I think there's places for functional consolidation, I really do. And if you look at things like EMS and some of the places that were already functionally consolidated, they work pretty well. If you go into it thinking that it's going to save a lot of money, you're kidding yourselves. Most all the studies around the United States, the longitudinal studies, show that consolidation of big cities and county governments don't always save money, because the services that are needed and have to be paid for. Now, there is some functionality that'll save money, but if you only go into it to save money, you need to reanalyze why you're doing it.
So, in your opinion, what is one thing that Sedgwick County leaders could do to improve life here in the county?
Well, certainly look at more consolidation of things that have to do with the city, where they can work on projects together. Now, it doesn't really mean eliminating government or consolidating government. It means working on projects together. Right now, I mean, we're still up in the air on Century 2 and a performing arts center and what to do with the library, the city library. And I think all of that needs to be a huge public comment period to figure out what is right. And the county, I think, has a place for that. If you go back not too long ago, the county took on the responsibility of building Intrust Bank Arena. And that
you led that effort.
I was right in the middle of it.
Yep.
Tom Winters and Ben Sorrentino and Dave Unruh and Carolyn McGinn was part of that. We all thought that was very important. The Coliseum had gotten a little dated. It was kind of in the wrong place. It wasn't making an economic viable difference in our community, and we thought that a downtown arena would be good. And at the time, the city couldn't get it done, so we put it to a vote. It passed, and now we've got Intrust Bank Arena.
So looking back at that, do you have any regrets?
Every time I go to a concert or an event or something for my grandkids there, no regrets.
You feel proud?
I feel very proud. And it's made a real difference in Block 1 of the downtown development. And now in the middle of Block 1 is going to be the Biomed Center, and those are big things for our community.
So, Tim, what are you most proud of in your life? Something else other than that Intrust Arena?
I just, like I say, I just wrote my book. And
the title?
I'm Just a Simple Man.
Uh-huh.
And that's really kind of a family joke, because the kids would ask me what I wanted for Christmas or Father's Day, and I'd go, I don't really need anything. I don't want anything. I'm just a simple man. Right. And of course, they turned it on me and said every time I'd say something like I didn't need something, they'd go, oh yeah, we know, Dad. You're just a simple man. But that was my title. But I'd have to say that really my kids and family and grandkids, I'm very proud of how they've turned out. And my wife and I put a lot of time and effort and energy into making sure they had a good childhood, good direction from us, got good help from the community and their neighbors and the educational system.
You seem to have taught them a lot, you and your wife. Yeah. What have they taught you?
How to love unconditionally. Because I wasn't an easy guy to live with when I was running a Target store and was mayor of a town and was so involved in everything in the community. And they still loved me and ministered to me when I was tired and needed a little propping up. So love unconditional is pretty important.
So what are you most proud of in your career?
That I promoted probably more people out of my Target store than almost any other store manager in our company.
Wow. So what inspires you today, Tim?
Just life in general. Getting up every morning and seeing the new day that has infinite possibilities. Even in retirement, there's things to do. Every night before I go to bed, I write out a things to do list for the next day. And that harkens back to my Target days where I didn't want to forget anything, so I'd write down my things to do list. But I still do that to make sure that I'm challenged to do some things and accomplish some things the next day.
Of the things to do that you write down every morning, what seems to be the most common denominator, repeating itself all the time?
Health and movement, getting my steps in, making sure I'm doing my physical therapy kind of things. But
exercising?
Exercising, being sure that I'm physically and mentally going to maintain myself until I go away from this earth.
With all of your life's experiences that you've had as a professional retailer, politician, any philosophy of life you've formulated?
Well, once again, I referred to that in my book. I used to lecture my kids about live your life with no regrets, follow your dream, find your bliss, live every day as if it's a gift. And I still believe that. That's really what I've told my kids. Live your life with no regrets, follow your dreams, take a risk, find your bliss.
Community leader and servant, Tim Norton, thank you so much for joining me.
No, this was a gift to me today.
Was it?
Now I can check it off my things to do list.
Oh, really?
It was on there. So okay. I didn't forget to be here.
Okay, good. Well, we're happy to have you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this week's edition of One-on-One. One-on-one@kpts.org is our email address. That's if you have any questions or comments. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Be well, and I'll see you again soon.